Okay, welcome back to Truckin' the Seven Seas. This is episode number 40, and in this episode, we're going to go over week 10 of the Lease Operator Program at Night Transportation. We run into some weather this week, but other than that, it's pretty smooth sailing. I'm also going to talk about declining loads at Night Transportation and when it's a good idea and when it's not, and we'll go over that at the end of the video. If you are new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. Every week, I show what loads I take, what my expenses were, what my revenue was, and what my net cash flow was, and I compile all of this information and I put it into a spreadsheet that I share with you at the end of every video. So if this is a topic that interests you, follow the channel. But last episode, we left off in Grandview, Washington, so we dropped a load in Grandview, Washington, and then we got dispatched on another one picking up in Spokane, Washington, and headed to Fremont, California. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped the load out in Fremont, California. Then we got dispatched on another one picking up in Livermore, California, and headed to Santa Fe Springs, California. Let's go. Okay, so I dropped the load in Santa Fe Springs, got dispatched on another one, picking up in Mira Loma, California, and headed to Utah. But we're gonna relay it in Vegas because we gotta do a reset. So we're relaying this in Vegas. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped the load yesterday in Las Vegas, and then we did a reset, and then we got dispatched on another one picking up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and headed to Red Bluff, California. Let's go. So after the Red Bluff, California load, we got assigned another load picking up in Manteca, California, and going to Boulder, Colorado. However, that load is not going to make the paycheck, so it's spreadsheet time. For week 10, we did 4 loads, and in those 4 loads, we got 2,376 miles, and we're paid a total of $3,894 for an average of $1.64 per mile. Fuel expenses, we fueled up 6 times, and in those 6 times, we paid $1,515 for an average of 64 cents per mile. We got the maintenance thing reimbursed. That actually wasn't the light. It was some other issue that they, I guess they were just rounding their books or something for the end of the year. I'm not 100% sure, but they tagged it. I called about it, and it got reimbursed. I forget what it was for. It was for something random during the initial MRP. So I got that back, and yeah, so we got that back. And it was not the light. Never got charged for that. Other expenses, MRP, $118, Qualcomm, $13, Bobtail, $692, physical damage, $69, occupational accident policy, $34, permits, $42, pre-pass, $350, truck payment, $450, scales, $1350, fuel mile tax, $71, and lease security deposit, $100, for a total of $923 for an average of 39 cents per mile. Weekly totals, expenses were $2,225 for an average of 94 cents per mile. Revenue was $3,894 for an average of $1.64 per mile. That brings our net settlement to $1,668 for an average of 70 cents per mile. Total expenses since starting the program, total expenses are $22,906 for an average of $1.02 per mile. That is my cost per mile. Total revenue was $39,217 for an average of $1.74 per mile. Net cash flow was $16,311 for an average of 73 cents per mile. If I had been a company driver during this period, I would have made $12,147 at 54 cents per mile. And if I had been an owner-operator who owned his truck outright, I would have made $20,711 for an average of 92 cents per mile. Averages and other information. Average weekly paycheck is $1,631. We are averaging 2,250 miles per week. Total fuel costs were $12,544 for an average of 56 cents per mile. Total maintenance costs are $1,988 for an average of 9 cents per mile. If I kept this up for a 52-week period, I'd make $84,000 and get a total of 116,000 miles. We've been employed 70 days or 10 weeks, taken 10 days off, had 60 days on duty, taken 41 total loads, and the average load length is 549 miles. Okay, going to the company pay versus the lease pay weekly. So this is the weekly paycheck, and it shows the volatility between company and lease. As you can see, the lease is a lot more volatile and will probably continue to be so, especially if I have a major breakdown or something like that. But this just shows each paycheck weekly and how much or little it was, and compares that to company pay, which is the blue line, just to show how much more volatile and just to compare company versus lease pay. And below that, you got total company pay versus lease pay. So this is pay in aggregate. Lease is red, company's blue. And as you can see right now, making a little bit more, and I have consistently made a little bit more as a lease driver than a company driver. You can determine whether that's, worth it or not. I'm just posting the numbers here. But as you can see, currently, lease pay is a little bit higher. It is right here as well. So lease pay is $16,000, whereas a company driver would have made $12,000. And that's the last data point right here. So that's what that shows. So it just shows company pay versus lease pay in aggregate to show how much or a little or less a company driver makes versus a lease driver. So there you go. Okay, yeah, so there's week 10. Caveat here, the fuel bill was extremely high. So if you remember last week, my fuel bill was very low, so I had a very good week. This week, it's pretty high, 64 cents per mile. And it looks like I had a fuel up, probably this one right here. I would guess that fuel up was actually for last week's running. But I fueled up on this paycheck, so it hit this paycheck. But I'm guessing this fuel up right here is last week's paycheck. And I don't know, potentially even this one, I'm not sure. But the fuel expense was actually quite high this week. And so that dragged me down a little bit. And yeah, so pretty standard week. 2,300 miles. It's okay, not great, but it is what it is. Starting to have some weather issues now. So this after this Red Bluff load right here, I got another load picking up in it was Sacramento area and going to Phoenix, and I I would have dropped the Red Bluff load, and then I would have had some delay when I could pick up that Sacramento to Phoenix load. So I looked at it, and I decided to decline it. And after I declined it, I realized I probably shouldn't have done that because it wasn't too bad. The weight wasn't too bad. So that was a bad decline, and I should have taken that load. So you got to be a little careful when you decline a load. They're not going to like punish you or anything, but you just got to think strategically. And I did not think strategically on that one because, well, after I declined that load, there's a gigantic winter weather storm coming this way, and I'm currently in it right now. And I'm actually sitting right now waiting for the wind to die down. And but that load going to Phoenix would have completely avoided that winter weather. And even though it was a little bit, I would have had to wait a few hours before I could pick it up, it was actually quite okay. And after I declined it, I realized my mistake. And then I called like a couple hours later, and I was like, hey, I'm going to take that load. But it was too late. Another driver was already accepted on it. So I couldn't get it back. So instead, I got a load going to Boulder, Colorado, which was longer, but that took me pretty much right through the storm. And I ended up having to just sit in Sacramento an entire day because I had to wait for the storm to get past the Sierra Nevada. The Sierra Nevada, along the 80 there, they were chaining for like 100 miles or something, and I just was not going to do that. And if I had just accepted the Phoenix load, I wouldn't have had to do that. So just a lesson in declining loads. Think strategically about it. And I see a lot of people in the comments telling me to decline these shorter loads, but I think that's a bad idea, to be honest, because, yeah, they're a short load. Well, I guess this one right here is a short load. So it might be a short load, but it keeps you moving, and your DM is probably trying to get you into a better area. So, I guess my attitude is, what's the saying? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So I would prefer a load that I know I can take and, I'm prepared for than trying to find a 2,000 mile load. And especially right now, with the market being so terrible, it's a bad idea to decline loads. And that was a particularly bad decline there. Not only because the wait wasn't too long, but also I should have checked the weather and realized that I was going to hit some monster storms. And yeah, so that declining that load probably cost me an entire day versus a few hours. So just a note there, before you decline a load, really consider it. Is it that bad? Is it just a couple hour wait or something like that? And before you decline a load, make sure you check the weather, especially in winter, because you don't want to decline a load that has very good weather where you're going, versus, if there's a giant storm like there was this time, you might end up going toward that storm if you decline that load that's not going toward the storm. So just a note there, it's generally not a good idea to decline loads unless there's something particularly wrong with it. And this one wasn't too bad at all. So, I pretty much very rarely will I decline a load. And that one was actually a totally fine load. I definitely should have taken it. But just have a very good reason why you decline a load and not just, I have to wait a few hours like I did on this one. That was a particularly stupid decline, and I should have taken that load. But yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know why I declined it, but I did. So bad idea, cost me an entire day, and end up driving through some crappy weather when I could have been in Phoenix instead. So, bad decline. So take that lesson. But that will do it for this episode. If you are interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, they are available in the About section. And if you are interested in truck driving, there's a link in the pinned comment down below. Just click that link, fill out your information, and a driver recruiter will get a hold of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.